Daughter-in-law joked about my late husband, so I revealed her fake pregnancy, but what my son did next made me cut him off. So my whole family gathers together and we usually have family dinners at one of my children's places. It gives me a chance to visit and meet them all while each of them gets to be the host and boss around the others. We all love each other and it has always been fun. But this year my son got married to this girl who none of us had known before he announced his wedding. I was a bit shocked when he suddenly told me out of the blue that he was going to get married. I asked him why he never introduced me to the girl he was dating and what was the rush, as he was only 24 and still too young to settle. He told me that they have been dating for over a year and really love each other, so for them it wasn't a rush thing. He said that they just decided one day that if they are going to spend the rest of their lives together, why not start it right then? And he said 24 isn't that young of an age, as I also got married when I was 24. I tried to make him understand that times are different now and he isn't even settled in his career, and yet he was trying to start a life, and that too with a girl he had known only for a year, but he shushed me and told me to be happy as this was his choice. I was still very skeptical about it all. What made me doubt that something was wrong was the fact that they rushed their wedding. It took them 3 weeks to plan everything and send out the invites. When I received mine, I was shocked to see it. I immediately called my son and asked him why it was so soon and why he didn't ask for any help. He said it was a really small wedding with only our immediate family and a few close friends being invited. But I kept pressuring him about what was going on and about his seriously odd and concerning behavior. He finally caved and told me that the real reason they were getting married so soon was because Lily, my daughter-in-law, is pregnant. And that made a lot of sense for me. So about a month ago they got married. I fully supported them after finding out the truth, and even visited them after the wedding a few times to make sure they were doing okay and all the stress of the wedding didn't cause harm for the baby. But what struck me as odd was my daughter-in-law's behavior. Being a mother of 4 kids, I knew very well how a pregnant person should be. Even if it was very early for her to start showing, there was no way she wasn't feeling any discomfort. There's always a slight pain in the lower back when you're pregnant, and it's hard for you to not be concerned about how you move. But whenever I was over at my son's place, I always noticed Lily going about her life without a concern in the world. She would rush around the house like she isn't pregnant, and even when she bumped into something, never once did I catch her checking for her baby, even unconsciously. It was a natural instinct to check your tummy even if nothing happened, so it all struck me as odd. So I asked her when was the last time she went to get a checkup. She said one was due in a week and that she's sure everything will be fine, but she avoided my eyes when answering. I told her I'd be happy to go with her, but she refused me even before I could finish my question. It all struck me as very odd, so I acted on my instinct and decided to find out what was actually going on. When I went through her room and saw the medical reports, I found the ultrasound report. It was actually hidden behind some other files and was separated from her other medical papers. The report read that everything was normal and there was no baby. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought there must be a misunderstanding. That's why I planned yesterday's dinner. I wanted to take time to think about what I discovered, and I decided to talk to my daughter-in-law before revealing the information to my son. But she just pissed me off so hard that I revealed the truth about her pregnancy. Well, I made the dinner for everyone, and because I was preoccupied with my thoughts, I didn't pay much attention to what I was cooking. So obviously the outcome was almost inedible chicken curry that no one could wash down their throats even with water. Everyone laughed it off, saying Mom was getting old and other stuff, but what my daughter-in-law said was incredibly insincere. She said that maybe I've forgotten what it feels like to cook a meal, since I usually don't cook anything fancy just for myself. I laughed it off, but then she continued with her joke. She said that maybe this was one of the reasons for my late husband's stomach cancer. That was no way to talk about a dead guy. It was insulting and humiliating, and I couldn't control my anger. I snapped at her that at least my husband loved me even with my horrible cooking skills, unlike hers, because she needed to lie about being pregnant to get him to marry. Everyone was shocked after hearing what I just said, so I told them how I found out about it. I also told them that today's dinner was planned so I could get Lily on her own to talk to her, because she had been avoiding me for a while, maybe because she knew I found out about her fake pregnancy. My son was really furious after hearing that. He asked her if it was true and she didn't reply. What I didn't expect was my son to completely lose control. He actually got up and pushed her shoulders to make her face him. He asked her again in an aggressive voice if it was true, and she mumbled yes. That's when he hit her. He actually slapped her in front of his mom and his siblings. And it wasn't a light slap either. I could see the mark left by his fingers across her face. That's when I knew how messed up the situation had gotten. I asked my eldest son to take him out of the room while my daughters and I supported Lily. She was crying at this point. We somehow got things under control, but I was really ashamed of my son. I knew half of it was my fault, but I never expected him to be this aggressive. He had never once in his life squashed a bug or gotten into a fight, so I couldn't understand where this behavior was coming from. I asked him to leave the house when everyone was going away, but I didn't let Lily go. She stayed at my place for the night. Now I don't know what to do in this situation. Should I support Lily, a girl who lied and got married to my son, which I'm still not sure is the full truth because everything got so messy last night I didn't get to talk to her about it? Or do I support my son and ask Lily not to press charges? Will I be the a-hole if I sided with my son? Update 1. So I finally got to have a long-awaited chat with Lily. I asked her what was the whole truth and she told me that Alex, my son, and Lily were having problems, so she thought that telling him that she's pregnant will stop all the fighting and they'll be able to move past the rough times. She did not accept him to propose to her or marry her, but when he did she couldn't say no. So she kept telling the lie she had already told and went along with the wedding. She was planning on faking a miscarriage pretty soon, but before she could do that I got all nosy and found out the truth. Now I know what my son did was extremely wrong. There's no situation bad enough that could justify him hitting his wife. But what Lily did was also a fraud. They are both wrong, and if they decide to take legal actions to get the other one punished it'll get really ugly. I advised Lily to settle this between Alex and herself and get a mutual separation. There is no way that either of them will come out of this unscathed, so it's better to cut your losses and move on with your life. They are both young after all and have their whole life to live. I don't know if she understood me, but for now she had gone back to her home. I told her to call me if Alex goes out of line again. But I hope he doesn't after how much I scolded him. Update 2. So it turns out you can't really control someone. My son, Alex, hit Lily again when she went back a few weeks ago. Yesterday Lily called me and told me about how she asked him for a mutual divorce where both of them get to keep everything they own. But my son got even more pissed at her. He apparently told her that there's no way he was going to let me off so easily after she destroyed his life with a lie. When she tried to make him see reason and threatened him that she's going to press charges against him if he doesn't divorce her, he actually got angry and hit her again. This time no one was around to stop him and she barely managed to get out of the house. She had been staying at a friend's place and had decided to press charges against Alex. I was afraid of this, but honestly after what he did I can't protect or support him. I didn't raise my son to beat a woman, and if this is what he is doing then he really should be behind bars. And even though I couldn't forget that this whole thing started because Lily told that horrendous lie, I told her that if she needs any help she should ask me. I might hate her for what she did, but I hate my son even more for being an abuser when he knows perfectly well that my first marriage ended because of domestic abuse. Update 3. It's been 6 months since I last updated. It was a really bad one for me, but I wanted to leave a quick update for people who were curious about what happened. When Lily pressed charges against my son, he retaliated with filing a report against her for fraud. It was an ugly battle on both sides. The number of times I found myself going to trials is unthinkable. But now finally it's over. None of them reached any conclusions even after so many hearings, and in the end they came to a mutual conclusion. They both settled and their divorce was also finalized. Because California law against domestic violence is very strict, the only way to dismiss the case was for Lily to drop the charges, and she did that in exchange for Alex dropping his charges and giving her divorce and spousal alimony. As for me, I have cut all ties with my son. I don't need a guy who beats women as my son. I can't even look him in the eye without feeling shameful for being his mother. I recently traveled out to my childhood best friend's wedding. As it's far away, she and her husband were hosting me at their home. It's lovely of them, and I did a lot to help around the house and with setting up their reception, and thanks. A few weeks prior to my going up to stay for the wedding, my friend tried to introduce me to a friend of her and her husband, adding the two of us onto a group chat. He'd apparently seen pictures of me and was interested. I'm currently single, so was down to talk to him on the group chat to get a feel for him, but he gave off major creep vibes and I was not comfortable at all. I told my friend after in private he wasn't for me and he made me uncomfortable, but thanks for trying. I put that behind me without a second thought, and the wedding was beautiful, but then the reception came. It was a formal sit-down reception with set seating, and I found I'd been sat beside the guy from before. I wasn't about to kick up a scene though, so figured I'd just get through the reception. He was worse than the group chat though, and constantly in my space, trying to touch me, which I kept rebuffing forcefully, and when I took my phone out during a lull while people were dancing to text my sister, he kept trying to stare at my screen and even playfully reached to grab my phone, saying it was rude to be on my phone during a wedding reception. At this point I had enough, told him to f*** off and read the vibe. I ended up spending the rest of the night at the bar and not the table, as the main sit-down portion was over and I wanted to avoid him. The next morning, after I cooked breakfast for my friend and her husband as thanks for hosting me, I told her that she shouldn't have sat me next to him and she'd overstepped, that she knew I didn't feel comfortable with him. She got defensive and told me she'd thought that it'd be easier to get along with him in person than on a message. When I asked why she hadn't given me a heads up then, she had no answer and instead told me I was being very ungrateful and they were putting me up for the journey and how it was rude of me to question her on who she decided to sit where. Her husband didn't say anything to this, clearly not wanting to get involved in us butting heads, and I told her she could have sat me anywhere but with him and I'd have been happy, and then began to tell her what had went down and she didn't see it as a big deal, saying I just didn't know him well enough to get his personality. Stressing again I was being unfair to her. I know a wedding is a lot of pressure and it's down to the bride and groom to make choices, but is it really too much to ask to not be sat next to someone in a setup when you've stated he makes you uncomfortable? I, 28 female, am a mom to 2 kids, a 7-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy. Their dad is my ex, and he and I ended things when I was pregnant with our son because he cheated on me with a friend of mine, who he's now married to. Despite the fact that the situation kind of sucks, I try my best to be as civil as possible for the sake of my children. My daughter has been asking for a superhero-themed room for a while now, so I slowly saved up and worked on a few DIY projects so that I could actually give her one. I managed to get one of those race car beds for a decent price, and painted it to make it look like the Batmobile. I bought some stickers and posters to put on the walls, new curtains, sheets, drawer knobs, new shelves to hold all her comics, etc. While she was at school the other day I was able to get it all assembled in her room, so she came home to a surprise. She was so happy and excited about it that I guess she ended up telling her dad when she and her brother were at his house for the weekend. My ex called me and asked if I had given our son's room a makeover too, then he got upset when I said that I hadn't. He said that giving our daughter a new room while not doing the same for our son was completely unfair and it looked like I was showing favoritism. I tried to explain that I only redid her room to begin with because she asked me if I would a while ago, and I saved up to be able to make it happen. If my son had asked for a new room, I would have done it for him too. He still insisted that I'm a bad mom for decorating one kid's room and not the others, and that even if our other child didn't ask for it, I should have done it anyway. I said that he really wanted to make it even, he could just contribute money for our son to get his room redone too. He then told me that decorating my house isn't his responsibility, and that he thinks I'm doing more for our daughter because I probably still have some emotional issues from the breakup when I was pregnant with our son, so I'm taking it out on him. I told him I'd work on our son's room while the kids were at his place until Sunday evening, and then I hung up. I don't know if this is all just me letting his words get into my head and that's why I feel bad now, or if I actually messed up by redoing my daughter's room but not my son's. Was I the a-hole here?